And we're live. Hi, and welcome to Gay Out the City. I'm your host, Prince Electro Diamond, and today I am here with go-go dancer Andre Spades. How you doing today, sexy?
Not too bad. How about you?
I am good. I'm so glad it's almost end of the week, theoretically.
Well, I mean, it's close enough, right?
Yes, yeah,
It's starting, at least where I'm at, it's Thursday evening, which means people are already mentally
yeah.
checking out. So we're getting there.
Well, yeah. It was Thursday evening for both of us. It's like we're not that far apart in time. So like, I'm in Florida, so like not
Oh,
that far. Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Yeah, it's only an hour time difference. So
yeah.
we're splitting hairs at that point.
Yeah. But I'm planning on moving out of here this year and moving north, but in the same time zone, so I'm all good. Plan on moving to Detroit.
Oh, Detroit. Holy moly. Oh, that's going to
Yeah.
be quite a difference.
It's because my thing is Florida is not affordable. Like
Oh, yeah.
at all. Like I like living by myself. Like I don't like having roommates and all this stuff in the end. Florida's not affordable.
So what you're saying then is like Florida is more, if you have a roommate, it's kind of doable, but if you don't do it.
Yeah, because it's like the cheapest rent, and I mean the cheapest rent, would be $900, and that's like splitting hairs. Because like if you live in that apartment in 1 year, it's automatically going to go up to like 1,500 by the time you're in. Or no, wait, no, not 1,500. My bad. It's not that it is that bad in some parts. It's that bad in Miami, which I tell people I want to live in Florida. Don't. It's not worth it. Like come party here, come visit, leave.
Yeah, yeah, because I had thought about moving to near Fort Lauderdale, but
No.
I'll have to keep that considered. But I would actually have a roommate, so who knows?
Well, my view is if we this is just me. If we not fucking, I don't want to live with you. Like that's just my view on it. Like
Already roommate contract. This is a part of the business plan.
because I mean they're gonna be the ones ruining the game anyway. So it's like if they ain't helping you, like they're just in the way.
That's fair. That's
Yeah.
absolutely fair. That hey, I using the video game analogy, that's why I do not like certain like MMOs and things like that. I'm a solo person. My simplicity goes down to Skyrim. That's how much of a solo person I am sometimes. I cannot. Nope, partner quest. Nope. Nope.
And the thing is, like, for me, this is what I say about Detroit. Detroit is just cheap enough to where this is what I have to say, and this is what when people say like Detroit, listen, Michigan's Union State, so like they pay you more money and it's cheaper to live.
That's fair. It was an
Meaning like
absolute fair assessment.
you can get a I was looking, you can get a 1 bedroom apartment for as cheap as I think 650 was one of them that I was looking at.
Oh wow, yeah. I mean that makes Minneapolis look expensive.
Yeah. But it's like this is the thing. I've lived in Orlando before. Like when somebody says like you lived in the hood, I'm like, listen, that's what I was paying in Orlando in the hood. Like, well, not 650. I was paying 750, but I was like, God, almost 6 years ago. Yeah, it's been different. I've been living at home. I've been trying to save up my money because I want out.
That's understandable. I get in this economy, I completely understand that.
Yeah, it's also I'm living at home. It's never living at home is never fun.
No, there's a different price to be paid there too, though.
So yeah, so where are you originally from?
What is complicated question, I suppose. I mean, I don't mind. I don't mind having a little bit of a backstory. So I was adopted from a family that actually lives here in Minnesota a long time ago when I was 5 from Bogota, Colombia. So I'm not
Oh
originally
wow.
from the United States myself, but by process of factors other than my own existence, that's how I ended up in Minnesota and been there ever since. I haven't lived in any other state.
So like so what is there to do in Minnesota? I nothing, right?
Oh. Well, I mean, I suppose I've been living in the state since I was 5, so that I've been here for 26 years and we've been around the state. I mean, the only major city in Minnesota is Minneapolis. I mean, you can say St. Paul, but as far as the one city is way more lively than the other. Uh, but for city life, it really comes down to Minneapolis. If you're into nature, though, then Minnesota has a lot of things. Like because of the changing of the seasons, you've got like skiing and snowboarding and other winter sports, camping, trails,
Yeah.
hiking. In the summer, you've got all the lakes. So if you like to live the lake life, there's water sports. Um, but in the winter, it becomes pretty desolate. And if you're not really the clubbing kind, then you know your things to do in the winter become very limited. But I mean,
Right.
like, as most other cities, I mean, there are other types of things to do. There are plenty of restaurants to go to. There are
Right.
plenty of other indoor activities. I mean, just like most places. I don't like. I mean, there's a lot for me to do because I don't like sitting in one place all the time. So I'm always figuring out something one day or the next, depending on how much time I have. But to answer your question, in the winter, not so much. Anytime the weather
Yeah.
is warm, there's plenty to do.
We'll see. I kind of like the idea of cold. As some people say, like, that's spoken from somebody who's been in heat. Trust me. I love the prospect of cold sounds great. I was literally sweating putting on my makeup. Like, that's how hot it is here. And it's May.
Oh, it can it
Yeah.
can it can definitely get torturous here in Minnesota. I think some people highly underestimate. We've had days where we've gotten more humidity and more heat than Miami.
That's sound that's crazy.
it
Sight to
doesn't
think about.
it doesn't happen very often, but as the climate becomes increasingly unpredictable, which it has the last, I'd say, decade or so,
Right.
we've had some weird summer days where I'm like, oh my goodness, it's. I mean, we had one summer where it barely pushed 90 degrees, and then we had a month full of mid 90s and upper humidity, and then we've
Yeah.
had some storms that got so awful. I think about a decade ago now, we had a tornado in Minneapolis.
Wow.
Like the weather just gets really crazy here. Like we've had winter months like this year. We had a winter where we barely got any snow. It literally snowed 2 or 3 days out of the entire season. And our
Wow.
last snowstorm, which was like one of the snow days, came literally on the first day of spring.
Yeah. See, this would be my thing to tell you about moving to Fort Lauderdale. In Florida, construction workers have a tendency to build on top of things they shouldn't build on top of. And
Oh,
it rains a lot here, which means when it rains a lot, streets flood.
yep.
Because I know that is not as much of a problem. So I lived, as I said, I lived in Orlando. That is not a much a problem in like northern Florida as it is in southern Florida.
Yeah.
Because I'm originally from South Florida, yeah, so I know
Okay.
that. Yeah. And it's like, and also it's so Well, in the way that Detroit is liberal and Michigan is liberal, Florida is very conservative. Like, just as a whole. Like, I won't admit. Minnesota, I know, is kind of in the middle of the country, right?
Yeah, it's. I would say it's like right in the middle of the upper Midwest. It is this
Okay.
very weird amalgamation of everything that surrounds it.
As I say, as educated in Florida, be lucky I can spell my name. It's sad, but true. Although I will say, at least they wanted to teach us something, because the way I'm going to sound old here. The way they're teaching kids now, it's like, right, so you want to take books out of school and make people stupider.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense at all.
Well, no, because it's like you take away books and there's still the internet, although internet has its own problems.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
What are you going to do, take away the internet?
That's...
Oh, we opened that can of worms.
But anyway. So I guess, what was it like for you? Because as you said, so like, do you remember much of your childhood before 5 years old, or is it like, do you pretty much only remember being in Minnesota?
No, I do remember parts of my childhood slightly beforehand. It was very interesting. I was basically, if one could sum it up, because I mean, for anybody who extensively studies psychology, just to put it into SparkNotes version, people don't usually start forming formative memories until around 4 or 5 years old.
Right.
So sometimes younger childhood memories some people remember it like it's like a Polaroid photo, and some people it's fuzzy and some people don't remember. For me, I would consider I'm in the middle of that. I remember some parts of it, and then there's some parts I'm like, unless I had a photograph, I'm like, what? But I do remember the adoption process. It was very weird for me because obviously I didn't know what that was. For me, all I saw was two strangers that gave me candy and a Beanie Baby and then took me out to an amusement park. And they're like, we're your parents now. All right, we're going to go back to a place that's cold. And you're going to spend the rest of your life with us. And so that was the way it was. But Colombia is a very interesting place if I were to put notes on that, because when I came to the United States, it was 1997. And back in South America at that time, Colombia was undergoing a major collapse in government because of all of the damage that Pablo Escobar had done in the drug wars between, or should I say the pseudo-drug war between outside entities and then, of course, the cartels, with Escobar having a stranglehold on the Colombian government. So it just left the country in shambles. And so it was a very interesting process getting out of the country. I do remember solely being in an embassy and an office for a long time, for a good chunk of those days when I first met my parents. And then on the other side of it, when I got to the United States, the meetings and the offices were not done, because then that's when I got citizenship here in the United States. And so it was a very interesting time because, I'm in a place I did not recognize, with a language I do not recognize, with people I do not recognize. But I just thought of it as an expedition, so I knew none the better.
Right.
If I were adopted at like 7, 8, 9, that'd be a whole different story.
But it's okay. So with that, being that you were adopted at 5, was it, I guess in some ways it's probably somewhat easier for you to learn English because you were so young, versus if you had been adopted, as you said, like 7, 8, or 9 years old, that'd probably be a little bit harder for you, right?
Right.
Mentally.
Yeah, because at that point, it just like how people born in the United States tend to learn English unless they're in immersion school. The language starts to settle in at that age. So, if I were older than 5 and coming here, it would be, how would I put this? It would be like if I immigrated here by myself at that point, because at that point the language is so baked in that trying to understand everything in English would be exponentially harder. At 5, it's, I think I wasn't speaking super complex forms of Spanish, so
Right.
my ability to take in another language can easily change that, which it did. That's
Yeah.
for better or for worse. And then I ended up mastering English versus Spanish, even though Spanish was my first language.
Right. And it's also like, trying to think, 97. Well, I was a kid, obviously, but like, so that was, I mean, obviously you were a kid, so like, even you coming to this country, even if it was kind of a more anti-immigrant time, you were a kid, so they wouldn't have gone after you like that hard. But I'm trying to remember if that part in the 90s, because that was like, because that was, for all the people who don't know, obviously 97 was pre 9/11, so like the way that foreigners were looked at back then versus, I would honestly say there's 2 times. There's was post 9/11, then there was the Obama years, and then there's the post Trump years, all of which had different ways of viewing people who immigrated to this country.
Right. I think if I were to put it in a simple sentence, I would say that immigration back then was better received in the way that, if people from outside the country came over, it was a much more positively received process. And also, especially during adoptions, it wasn't exactly as easy as people thought. Getting a child from Colombia was actually extremely difficult, granted the political situation in the country at the time. And the adoption process, depending on the country, can actually be rather expensive. I mean, my family that I live with today, they had spent well over $10,000+
Wow.
throughout the whole process. I mean, between getting a temporary place to live down there, because at that point the program had a mandatory time that they had to stay in the country before the government would clear everything. So at least one of the parents had to stay down there. So my mom got the unfortunate roll of the dice there, because my dad had a business to run, so he couldn't stay forever.
Right.
So my mom ended up staying for over a month until everything was cleared through. And then my dad stayed for a couple of weeks. And, that's why I was saying it was multiple trips to the office, because it was to the embassy, then it was to the government center, and making sure they have all the documents, and then the name changes. And so everything was legal by the time my mom finally was able to leave the country. And then the United States was actually really easy, because you were talking about, pre 9/11. That was back when you could have friends meet you right at the gate. So airplane rolls up to the gate, and my mom and I finally come off the airplane. Everybody was there to say hi. Like, unlike today, where they can't even really come in the airport.
Yes.
So it was a whole different time.
Yeah. I will say I never traveled pre 9/11, so like the only thing that I know in terms of that experience on flying a plane would be like watching movies. Although like there were like some times where I remember as like a little kid meeting my mom at the gate, like before she like took off to like go to a plane. And yeah, that's how it was, because people were, it felt safe in America. Although I would say post 9/11 we went a little bit too extreme. I haven't traveled in years, but it's like the idea of having to air travel, as I point out, I'm probably going to have to go to Detroit at some point just to like kind of smooth things out, because let's just say being thousands of miles away from where you're trying to move isn't necessarily the easiest thing.
No, it's not at
No.
all.
But it's also, I feel it's time. And from the time that like I lived here, where I wanted to move has changed. Probably Detroit was like the fourth place I had picked.
Oh,
Because at one point I thought I was going to move to Atlanta. Well, here was the thing. As someone who is older ish, I'm 24. No, I'm kidding. But it's like, but it's like, my dad had the conversation with me. Originally, I thought I was going to buy a condo. Like, I thought I was going to buy a condo somewhere.
okay.
And then, so my thought was I was going to move to Atlanta. But then I'm like, I'd already tried moving to Atlanta once. I'm like, that didn't work out. Let me try something else. Then I thought I was going to move to LA. And then I realized I have too big of a mouth to live in LA. And like, I will be the bitch who gets kicked out of every party 3 days living in LA.
Oh,
Because I am not the bitch that's gonna tell somebody who sucks, oh my god, babe, you did amazing. Like, I love that for you. I'm a musician. So
all
my
right.
thing is that, yeah, I'm gonna be like, if you suck at singing, I'm gonna be like, who the fuck told you could go up there? Like,
Yeah.
what? Like, do your friends not have ears? Like, I may not be that. I will think that definitely, because like,
Oh, many nights I have spent bartending a karaoke, and I want to gouge out my ears. So one can only imagine.
well, actually, wait, theoretically, as a bartender, you're not supposed to drink as a bartender. You're not supposed to drink.
Right.
It happens, but you're not supposed to. Like, well, actually, it depends. Are you working in a gay bar or are you working in a straight bar?
So when I used to bartend, that was at a gay bar. So, well, I should say quote unquote gay bar, because it's not really that kind of bar anymore. But I digress.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, people used to annoy the living crap out of me. Now, I had permission to drink. I was very surprised that my entire time there, I actually had the willpower not to drink until after everything was shut down and it was just us employees and the manager.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Good being a go-go dancer. I mean, I have those same types of nights though. So I I completely understand why the bartenders, some of them their eyes are twitching like this a little bit by the end of the night. Like it's like, you know, karaoke on
Yeah.
steroids, where some of the people with these big personalities, it just doesn't fit. It's like a puzzle that's in the wrong place. The puzzle piece that's not fitting, and you're just like, oh, make it end, make it end. You just, because you can't just kick anybody out unless they blatantly violate bar rules. So you're just like, I hope they don't come back. I hope they don't come back. Oh fuck, they're back.
Right. See, that's really gotta suck. I mean, anyway, we're gonna get into it. So,
We will.
believe me, I got plenty of questions to ask you about go-go dancing. Trust. I've interviewed enough go-go dancers to know kind of what happened. So, anyway, let's get into the next question. So, what was it like for you coming out?
Oh, that actually, I know everybody has different coming out story, but for me, it was actually the biggest relief of my entire life. I mean, it was very, anxiety ridden, like a lot of people that go through the process. But as I had come to learn on the other side of it, my fear of the result was bigger than the actual event itself, in the fact that I had just assumed that the moment I was like, hooray, I'm gay, my parents would be like, no, get out of our house. Which, fortunately, on that side, it was half and half. And the reason why I say that is because on the parent side, they're like, well, we love you. You know, we don't want to exile you. You're our son and we love you. But they were honest enough to be like, we love you. However, we just don't agree with what that other part is. And I'm like, okay, you don't have to be vague about it, just what it is, like your gay life.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, as long as you're honest with me, then I'm willing to sit with that, because I can't change people. People have to change themselves. So, I still visit my parents. I work with my parents because my daytime work. So, everything's amicable. But, when they have opinions, of course, I get hotly contested with them sometimes, because as part of the community myself, obviously, I'm not going to just sit with, even with my own parents, I'm not just going to sit with when people say shit that I don't like. So,
Right.
I remember on my 29th birthday, was it my 29th? No, my 30th birthday, actually. Um, my parents took me to a birthday dinner, but then my mom got on the subject of drag queens because she wasn't too fond of them. And I blew up at the table. I almost flipped the table over. I said, you know what? And being close friends with a lot of queens in the Minneapolis area, I was like, I'm not taking this. I said, if you say anything more about the drag queens, I'm done. I'm walking away from this family. I cannot handle this bullshit. We can
Yeah.
agree not to talk about it, but unless you've actually experienced this yourself, you need to keep your mouth shut. This is
Right.
basically how I put it to my mom. My
Yeah.
dad, he stopped talking about, he won't mention anything about the community or anything. I mean, but it's not saying that smart for them, don't talk to me about it. It's just more of like, they know that I'm part of that community. So is, to me, I just saw it as extremely insensitive. It's like, I was hoping that my parents, even though if they disagree, they wouldn't talk so much smack to my face about it. But I am glad at least I know what my parents' sentiments are versus, the typical Midwestern philosophy where people will say one thing passive aggressively and do something the next, which is a huge thing in Midwestern culture. Even it reflects in the politics, actually. But that's for another
Yeah.
conversation for another time.
Yes.
Um,
Absolutely.
but as far as friends, it was actually really funny how that went, because it was half and half. Half of my friends were like, "We knew this was coming, finally." And then the few gay friends that I had at the time, they immediately checked their phone for Grinder, and I was just like, really, really, because at that time I was like, it's only been 5 minutes. Um, so it was well received on the social side of it. I quickly made a community of people, and at that time, I actually, within 6 days of coming out, I actually ended up dating a drag queen, which was leading to that dinner conversation why I was so hell bent and protective on it.
Right.
So I went 0 to 100 when I came out. I immediately got involved in the community, became a bartender in the community, a dancer in the community, kind of helped behind the scenes with entertainers and drag queens. And so, it was something I immediately embraced, because it gave me something I had always yearned for. And that was being part of something I was comfortable with and actually absolutely love and being part of.
Right.
So it gave me something that not even my groups in college had. It's something I didn't really have in school either. It gave me a second family that I'm really close with, as far as the people that I spend the most time with. And, it's just given me more opportunities now that I'm more authentic with myself than I otherwise would have.
Right.
And I'm a lot happier for it.
Yes. Well, first of all, here's point A before I get into my thing. You said your family didn't disown you. They paid $10,000 for you to come here. I don't think they would disown you unless you maybe like murdered somebody. They ain't gonna disown you. They paid $10,000 for you.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, like I said, it was the fear the fear of a result versus the actual reality itself.
See, I had a duality. Well, the thing is, I will say the first person I actually ever came out to was my best friend. We actually came out to each other. So that was like,
Oh,
yeah. That was a lot. He had gone away to college. I was still in high school. And like, he was learning all this stuff. And when I was in college, wasn't very long, but when I was in college, like, I went around here, but it's like, I always kind of exposed myself to the world. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's jump back into coming out. So, like, so in some ways, I had a duality of things. So, like, I was raised in a Roman Catholic household as a kid. So, like,
ooh,
for me coming out, family was not that difficult. I'm going to say surprisingly, because I have older parents. So, like, in like a lot of ways, most people when I was growing up, their dads and moms were like in their like early to like, or like they were in like their late 30s, early 40s. My dad was 53 years old when I was 10. So, like,
oh,
yeah.
okay.
So, like, having the older parents, but I say I got the duality of things. This is like, yes, I had this religious upbringing on one hand, but on the other hand, my mom introduced me to Madonna. My mom introduced me to Donna Summer. My mom introduced me to Joan
Aw.
Rivers. So, like, I had that. But to my actual coming out, so she passed away 4 months before I came out. So it was only having to come out to my dad in terms of immediate family. And then I have an older sister who was super accepting. And then cut to last year, my sister came out and she's now in a relationship and like has been for 5 months. So it's like, some ways I'm like, I was the loving brother, but I also want to be like, you're welcome, bitch. But
I made it easy for you.
yeah, so that was that. So to that religious upbringing, so I came out to youth minister at the church, and I told him about this performance idea I had with a knife and how I practiced stabbing myself because I'm theatrical, creative, artistic, clearly. And he left the room. He came back in about 10 minutes later and he said, okay, you have one of two options. Either you're coming with me or I'm calling the cops. Now, in hindsight, I would have let him call the cops because I know the cops wouldn't have done a damn thing to me. They would have just like talked to me and let me go. So I went with him. He took me to get a psych eval. They had told me I had passed it. So I remember being on the phone with my dad. I was 18 at the time, and unfortunately, I had like signed away my rights because I didn't know what I was doing.
Oh no, no.
So like, I was on the phone. I was like, "Yeah, come back here and get me, Dad. Like, I'm all good." And then a cop yelled at me. He's like, "Get off the phone!" I'm like, what the fuck? I'm just over here like minding my own business. And then they stuck me in a hospital room, and for 5 hours they didn't tell me anything. They just left me in this
That's
hospital room.
crazy.
Yeah. And then like at around 2 o'clock in the morning, the next day after I was brought in, that's when they told me they'd put me on a suicide hold. And I was transported from the hospital to a behavioral clinic where I spent. See, what fucked me over was I was brought in on a weekend. So like the weekend psychiatrist didn't want to let me go. If I had been brought in during the week, I would have been out in a day.
Oh.
But I had to spend 64 hours there.
Oh.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
And then once I got out, the youth minister clearly thought he hadn't done enough damage. So he got me in a room with a priest who set me up with a therapist who tried to pray the gay away. She did it on 4 sessions. Yeah.
God. I told my parents, I said, if you try to pray the gay away, I'm just gonna be more gay. Like this, it's only going in one. I said it's only going in one direction, only.
And it's like, as I always say, like, the reason why when I'm moving to Detroit, I'm planning on putting out an album this year. And like, there was a lot of stuff that happened in like my late teens to like mid 20s. That I'm not gonna say it hasn't happened to anybody, but it hasn't happened to a lot of people. Like, in that time, after that, I was suicidal twice. I got raped as my first sexual experience.
Oh my goodness.
And then about, I want to say 3 years after that, one time when I was performing, I had some guy sexually assault me in drag. So it's like, all of that led to a good album. It led to like, writing it was so cathartic. Because I am someone, as like a singer-songwriter, I've never done therapy. Because for me, writing music is like healing.
Okay.
And I actually got a doctor on here who actually kind of agreed with me doing that. I was like, so you're telling me I'm doing something right, doctor? Like,
and they're like, yes, you are.
I'm like, okay. I'm like, I'll take it from the doctor. If you say I'm doing it right, then. But it's like so much of, yeah, I thrust in myself. That's why I say, so this album, it's like, it's an electronic album. I make electronic music as like a singer, but it's like, I say it's very much like how I would describe Lady Gaga's Chromatica as like that kind of like, you're dancing away the pain.
Right.
And to me, there's something beautiful in that, no matter how bizarre it is.
Don't mind me. I'm just moving to a little bit more friendly place with the lighting here. Not to rudely interrupt you.
Yeah. No, I get you. It's like sometimes this is what I have to say, and this is why I tell people and why I have no problem being like blunt and honest with people. It's like, when people say, the way I look at it is, so like I'm turning, can't believe it, I'm about to reveal my age. I've done it on here before. But it's like I'm turning 30 this year, and that was something, if you had asked me 5 years ago if I was going to make it to 30, I would have been like, hell fucking no.
Oh.
No way. Like, because with all of that, if you think about, I don't know the exact statistics, but it's like, statistically, if you're suicidal more than once, chances are you end up dying. You usually don't live to tell the story.
Understandable.
But for me, I want to say one of the people I have to thank, because like the second time I was strong enough to save myself, but that first time I really do have to thank my sister, because my sister was the one who had to talk me off the ledge, because I always say to people, being a performer, like if you're a doctor, you go to school to be a doctor. If you're a lawyer, you go to school to be a lawyer. If you're an accountant, you go to school to be an accountant. When you're a creative person, you're kind of just like given this talent, and it's like, now go do something with it.
Right.
And it's all like, so you get so lost because you work so hard to find who you are. And in that, a lot of times there's so many people who say, my only goal is to be treated like everybody else. And in all honesty, God, this is gonna sound a little egotistical, but but I'm a self-aware, so it's like I want to be treated somewhat differently than everybody else because I feel that I am different than quote unquote everybody else. Because it's like, as I say, doing this, doing music, it takes a lot of confidence to go out there and be like, I have something to say. Pay attention to me. But in that, if you don't, you wind up, you could wind up dead.
Yeah, I mean it's yeah, and that's the beauty of it though, is because not a lot of people would actually do that. Not a lot of people in all different spectrums of the entertainment industry
Yeah,
put themselves out there in a manner that shows who they are. And obviously, we'll get that into that part of the interview later.
yeah,
But it's true. Not everybody's cut out for it. Just like not everybody's cut out to be a doctor, and not everybody's cut out to be a lawyer, and not everybody's cut
yeah.
out to be a teacher, and so on and so forth. It just takes a level of self awareness in that particular kind of situation, plus the goal to do it.
And I say with like, there's talent versus skill also, because it's like being a like singer, being a musician, being a dancer, those are things that you have with talent. Doing this, like being able to like sit down and host a podcast and like run things, that's a skill. It's not something that like I feel some people are better like quote unquote born to do it than other people, but I've heard a lot of people. Well, I shouldn't say I've heard a lot of people. I hear some people where it's like, to me, the thing is, and I look at, yes, I'm not the biggest like podcast host ever, but I look at when some of these podcasts get people who are like big porn stars. These people have backstories.
Right.
And what questions are they asking them about? They're asking them about their fucking flesh jack. They're asking them about their fucking dildo. I'm sorry. I understand we sexualize these people. They're porn stars. They're on OnlyFans. Like, yes, I get that we sexualize these people, but they're real people. Like, Andre's a go-go dancer. Andre's a real person. Like, it's all performance, and like a lot of it is smoke and mirrors because a lot of it has to be smoke and mirrors. That's part of entertainment.
Right.
But at some point, there's some people who I feel never show the real them. And I'm talking about certain queer artists. I've said who it is on here before, but it's like they're showing so much of this like artifice smoke and mirrors thing that when they look at, they have this like giant villain persona, and like everyone's supposed to pay attention to that. Where's you? That's
Right.
my question. It's like, where's you? Because this is cute now, but this person I'm thinking about, they're in their 30s now. I'm thinking, baby, the closer you get to 40, people are going to expect something more. That's why at 30, with me putting out this album and it being like my first quote unquote official album, it's like now I can do the world's my oyster, like once it comes out, because it's like now I've shown you the real me, and I've shown that I'm not going to stop showing you the real me.
Right.
Which, as I always point out, is ironic to people because I'm sitting here talking to you in a fucking wig. But it's like, it's this that allows me the security, because I'm not going to lie, any performer who tells you, oh, I'm 100% secure in what I do, they're fucking lying to you. Like, for real.
Right.
If you say the like most extroverted person in the room, we're extroverted when we're on stage. I'm extroverted when I'm taking pictures, but at the end of the night, when I take everything off, I want to go to bed. Like, I want to fucking sleep. Like,
the realist comments of the day right there. The post-performance dread.
well, it's because like, especially with these go-go boys, I feel like would do a little bit more closer to what I want to do and I know I can do, where it's like drag queens, the average drag queen, you do two numbers, you're done.
Right.
I'm just warming up. Like, 2 numbers, like, give me 45 minutes. Give me an hour. I'm fucking singing. I can do it. It's like, so you give me an hour and a half. Of course I'm going to be tired afterwards. Because I actually had to do something. And it's like, you drain yourself. And the reason I say yes, I know go-go boys work in shifts, but like working shifts of like how many dances you do, but if I'm typically right, you're usually booked for about 6 hours, right?
Not even. It's the way it works here in Minneapolis is quite different because there's only 2 bars with go-go dancers, and I'm at one of them. So really, you only dance for a few hours. A lot of us don't even start till 11 and goes till 2. So it's a very short time. Interestingly enough, Minneapolis isn't the super late nightlife community. It's not like
Right.
Chicago where, a place like the Lucky Horseshoe will have, go-go dancers come in at 8, 9 o'clock and rotate all the way till 3 a.m.
Right.
It works for me. I mean, I rotate between Jello shots and go-go dancing, so I'm there for
Yeah.
longer than most go-go dancers. I'm there for 4 or 5 hours, and I go back and forth.
And that's a long night. Like, I get it as when I used to live in Orlando. So like, this is an early night, but I used to leave my house at 7:30 p.m. and I did not get home till 12:30 a.m.
Yep.
Which a lot of people say that's early. I'm like, do you realize how long that is? Like,
It's a long time.
especially I was performing at 2 different places. So like, I would be doing an open mic night. I'd do my 15 minutes, get done, get in my car, and drive across town to the gay bar I was working at. And then that was like from like 9 o'clock till midnight.
And that's the thing is like a lot of people may not see that as a late night, but when you're the one being the customer and not the one doing the entertainment or the
Yeah.
bar staff, you don't see that it's actually a very long night for us. Because we're
Right.
taking care of people that work during the week and we work when everybody else is free.
Yeah. Like, I used to do, my thing was, as I always say, I used to do locals night. So my night was like Thursday. And then like what I tell people is, and then when I got home at 12:30, I would get up at 4 to be to work at 6 a.m. and work till 8 o'clock that night
Oof.
at my rate. Yeah.
Ouch.
I was younger then. If I had to, I theoretically could do it again. I don't want to, but like, I could do it.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I've paid my dues back in my 20s. I couldn't do that again if I have a choice. Oof, that sounds terrible. I used to have long days myself before I ever came out and did different industries, and I don't wish that pain on anybody.
See, the only thing, well, I wouldn't mind that life if like I had to do it and like I was doing it for like morning radio, which I'd love to do radio. I love the concept of it. My mouth cannot be on FM radio because it's like I just imagine them sitting back there and like the dump button, like having somebody like constantly censor me, and like half the show is just like music because it's so restrictive. Not just language, but it's like there are certain aspects of sex that you can't talk about on radio, and to me it's like it's why like one of my like biggest inspirations in this like medium is Howard Stern. Like Howard Stern literally got chased off of FM radio.
Yep, I remember
Because
that.
yeah,
I remember that.
because you can't talk. You can't talk on FM radio. Like we have to worry about decency standards. It's like if I'm working from 6 to 11, I'm sorry, aren't kids supposed to be in school?
Right. Right.
Or like why you can't do stuff at 11 p.m. during the week. Once again, aren't kids supposed to be in bed? Like,
well, kids nowadays, whole different story.
see,
And they're finding we're and they're the funny part is, just to add some lightness to it, is they're finding worse things on the internet than we could even mention at this point. I mean, talk radio would be pretty kid friendly compared to what some of these kids are probably finding on their smartphones.
See, and that's also why I feel like why censor the radio? It's like it's 2024. It's like let people talk.
In 1997, that probably was understandable, but we're almost 30 years past that now. Like it's a whole different landscape out there.
Because you think even like 97, the country was somewhat conservative, not as well. The country's shift in conservativeness, it's like I would argue like some people say it's more liberal now than it's ever been. I would say it was more liberal during the Obama years than it is now. Like, and that's the sad part. What that was, God, his last term.
His last term ended 8 years ago. Oh no, wait.
Yeah, that's the sad part about it. It ended almost 8 years ago, and it's like we're supposed to move forward anyway. So, all right, so I know I have a tendency to talk. That's why I became host. So what made you want to become a go-go dancer?
Interestingly enough, it was spurred on by a proxy of meeting a drag queen. That was really what pushed it over the edge. But an initial spark of it came when I actually met who would have become one of my closest friends and coworker, who's also a go-go dancer, when I started going to a bar called The Saloon as a customer. That was really my first intro to the gay bar back in August of 21. And because at that time I had originally come out as bi, which was the safe route for me. And So I started going to the gay bar because I was like, well, okay, I'm starting to get comfortable with guys. I'm just gonna go off the deep end, just start meeting people. And so one weekend night I was out, I met my friend Carlos, who was a dancer and still is.
Right.
And I just had a lot of fun, and he befriended me. So we would talk on and off every time I'd visit there, every other weekend or so. And then when I had in 22, when I came out of the closet and started dating the drag queen, who was now my ex-boyfriend, I got introduced to a lot of other queens, and they're like, well, you come to the saloon so often, why don't you work on behalf of the saloon? Like, you could do it as a bucket boy at drag shows. And then I was like, yeah, but I would actually like prefer to go dance and actually enjoy my nights out still. So that's where that all started. And so the drag community was very supportive of that. And so, in order to be a go-go dancer at the saloon, one of the requirements is that you have to win the shower contest there. In the saloon is actually one of the bars in this country that uniquely has an actual shower in the bar. So, because we have a special license that we can actually do that, we've been grandfathered in as a bar for years for that. So, I did the shower contest. I ended up winning it on my one and only try. And, I went to the office. They said, you want it? Do you want the position? I said, yep. And then the rest was history. So I haven't looked back ever since. And
Right.
two prides and several big events later, and many, many nights of go work. And here I am.
That is amazing. I would love to say I've always never, well, I guess this is what makes me creative. I've never fit in where I perform. So it's like, as the drag queen who has the unique story of not starting in gay bars and actually starting in hetero bars
Oh,
at open mic nights, because I will say that's the thing that taught me how to work a room, because it's like when you're there in a bar with 10 other people who are all coming in with their guitar, and I'm sitting there coming into this bar, handing the host my iPod and hooking it up and thumping electronic beats in these tiny little cafes and bars. It really is amazing, and you have to win the crowd on your side
yep.
because they're not on your side. Like, in some ways, Orlando was very accepting of me overall, but it's like there wasn't a lot of room to grow there
Mm.
in the way that, like, as I always tell people, it's like Detroit is great because, like, A, they're an accepting community, but it's like, B, if I literally run out of shit to do in Detroit, Canada's right there.
It ain't going way up north now.
Yeah. Well, no, it's 10 minutes away from Detroit is
Oh,
Canada.
oh
Yeah.
yeah, fair enough.
I'm not talking about like going deep into Canada. I'm talking about like going into a border city.
Oh, okay.
Although we'll never see what happens. We'll never know what happens. If my album somehow ends up being extremely huge, I may this is what all artists want. Artists want to go on tour.
Right.
The problem is tours cost money. Much like everything costs money. If I can get sponsorships, fuck yeah, I'd go on tour. Like, I'd be like, see y'all in Detroit. I'll be back in a year. Wow. That sounds amazing. Anyway, back on point. This is like, So okay. So you said the first time you performed was in the shower show. So before you go dance, did you have any sort of like dance background beforehand, or was it just like something you kind of learned?
It was something I learned as I did it, because there's really no. If we had to talk about informalities of dance and dance theory, there is no such thing as go-go dance in that respect.
Right.
There is kind of just the general gyrations of what a dancer would do because obviously it's creating a sexual fantasy at a bar. But I learned it as I went. The friend that I became very good, close work friends with and friends outside the bar with that I told you about,
Right.
he helped out a little bit. And then as I got to meet other dancers from outside of the state, I kept in contact with them and they gave me pointers as well, along with videos of themselves as they were doing things on the job. And then I actually got to dance with the guest dancers. And so that, I mean, nothing better than actual on job experience.
Right.
So, that turned me from this guy who is just standing there in good looking underwear to somebody who can actually move. It wasn't that hard for me to catch on because I have a natural rhythm. I grew up as a drummer. I did ballroom dancing for a while, non-competitively. It was just as a hobby, and
Right.
so I have a sense of being able to move my body and making sense of the music, and that's half the battle when you're on the platform. But I would argue and say that the other half of the persona that a lot of dancers often fail at is actually being a personality that best reflects who you actually are. You were even talking about yourself as some people just become this completely different persona.
Right.
And, um, you know, to the more authentic you are as a dancer, ironically enough, is how you gain traction. And I've always firmly believed that, at least in my own life, if I'm going to put myself into something like this at this deep of a level at this point, I might as well actually enjoy it. There has to be something bigger than money out there to keep me doing it.
Right.
And so for me, it was the challenge of, can I do this more than just doing it as a bar gig? And now I'm at a point where I finally have the potential to do it outside of the bar. So I guess I treated it as a game with myself and not with anybody else, and that's what makes it fun. And that's what's made me want to actually work on different moves and transition to things like finding people who have the professional background to teach me stuff like, very intro level acrobatics and things like that. I mean, bringing it to the next level, because otherwise, like with anything, being a song artist or an
Yeah.
instrumentalist, or
Right.
you're going to move on if you don't. If you really want to make something of it, you have to actually hone your skills and make it a talent and
Right.
put work and put money into it. And I think that when you, especially since you've interviewed a lot of dancers, the very successful ones, they're the ones that don't just see it as dollar signs. I mean, it's part of who they are. And even when they stop doing it and they move on to other things, it will define part of who they are.
Right. And it's like you look at, because what Andre's trying to say, I know what he's trying to say, is he doesn't want to just be, and you can correct me if I'm wrong about this, the guy who just stands there. Like the guy who stands there and like gets people handed money. Some people love that. To me, I'm like, but what are you doing? Like, you have to do something for my money. Like, especially, this is what I'm going to point out. We've pointed out, obviously, all sorts of stuff. Times are tough. Like, times are really tough. If people are going to be giving you money, at least for me, I'm sorry. The guy who just, like, stands on the stage and does nothing, I'm walking past you.
Right.
And there's some people, listen, I'm not saying you have to be a WeHo dancer where you're doing jumps and splits and like diving off of. I'm not saying you got to do all that.
Right.
I mean, granted, don't get me wrong. Love some of it, but overall, it's like, but what's next? And first of all, my thing is like, to those people, it's like do your jumps and splits and tricks again, love it. But what you gonna do when you can't do that anymore?
Right.
Because that's why I always say like, I am forever grateful that I'm the bitch who sings live. Because in, I don't know, 10, 15 years, when those other girls who are now like extremely bigger than me can't do what they're doing anymore, baby, I love to sing and dance and do all of it, but it's like, I can actually sing. It's like, give me a stool and a microphone, I'll be fine for ever. Well, I don't know forever, but like, I would love, believe me, I would love to, but it's like, at some point, working your vocals and like performing, it takes damage on your vocals. Like, it's like you experiment as a singer. There's some vocal damage. Like, it's gonna happen, but it's like, at the end of the day, you're gonna love what you do, and like, I love doing everything that I do. And granted, as I always say, you have to sometimes work a real job to like pay for your passions, but eventually you'll find a way. If everything's meant to work out, you'll find a way to make it all work.
Right.
So, okay. So, oh, I love this question. I ask this all the time. How have you reacted when people have inappropriately touched you?
Ooh, well, isn't that the $1,000,000 question?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it really depends on the severity of it, as one might assume, right? I
Right.
mean, inappropriate touching is inappropriate touching, obviously, but I mean, a light smack on the ass is different than somebody trying to put a finger up my hole. So,
Right.
I mean, part of it is I have changed part of my wardrobe because of it. I've, as another professional dancer who's based out of Miami, he gave me the biggest safeguard on the planet. He said, "This is why if you've ever watched me dance," and I'm like, "Okay." He said, "This is why I wear thongs a lot."
Right.
Right? Restriction of access. And he goes, "And this is why people have to pay a lot." And now I've put both a paywall and a thong there. And I think, I mean, in an interesting situation. So if you could imagine the bar setup of the saloon. So you come off of the street and it's a big open bar as
Right.
one of the mini bars in the saloon, if you ever take a look at it. And so the big bar is called the disco bar. That's where the dance floor is. On the other side is where more of two of the go-go platforms are. And then there's a go-go platform next to the shower itself. So actually the shower is elevated with the platform. And so I was dancing on the platform and the guy was giving me money. And he just thought that bills equals touch as much as you want. And so I turn around as I usually do. And all of a sudden I was just like, "Don't touch me there." And so I gave him a nice warning. I said, "Do not do that again." So you can have your fun, but do not do that. No. So comes around, starts making it rain again. Okay, whatever. Touchy feely. I mean, like, people are going to do that. And then try to do it again. I said, "You get one more warning and then you're getting out of this bar." Like,
Right.
and the guy laughed it off and whatever. And well, what he didn't know is that I had a plan of action this next time. So I could tell he was drinking as he was
Right.
making his laps around this bar, because there is 4 other bars within the saloon. So he made his lap. He put bigger bills in there, and I felt it where it shouldn't have. And I turned around, they grabbed the guy by his Cuban chain, and I jumped down with him. And I looked at him and I said, "Your time here is done." And I looked at the security guard and I pointed at him and I said, "Take this trash with you." I said, "This ain't fucking Tuesday, but I want him out of this bar. Take the trash out." And so
Yeah.
this big, tall Latino security guard hauls him over his shoulder, and because I just threw him at him. And that was the last time I ever saw that guy. And suffice to say, it has not happened again. I think some go-go dancers are afraid to make an example out of people, but again, we are part of the bar staff, and so I exercise my right as part of the bar staff to make sure that myself and others have a good time.
Right.
And it's I think if I set an example by standing up for myself, it shows a precedent to the dancers that they can do similar things. Now, it didn't have to get that aggressive, sure, but the guy clearly understood at that point. And so, because the other dancers have had similar stories, I guarantee it. And,
Hmm.
rather or not something gets done, I hope something got done in their circumstances. But, unfortunately, security doesn't have eyes in the back of their head and they're not always present. And so I took the situation upon myself because I'm not going to allow it.
Yeah.
It's not something that I allow. I mean, do I stretch the boundaries a little bit? Sure, I do. Whatever is allowable at the bar. However, it is determined by me since, as I said earlier, you said you're selling a fantasy. So I determine how far that fantasy goes. And, as since it's my body that I'm broadcasting, I have every right to determine how far that goes. And if I want certain people to touch, then I have the boundaries. I have the right to set those boundaries.
It's because I'm answering this question, but it's because, as I've said before, and it's something that clearly another go-go dancer who has taught me this. It's because you have trappers and go-go's working in the same bar.
Yep.
And trappers are not going to mind you touching them any way that they want. They're trying to get more money out of you later when they go home. That's their whole job.
Right.
So I feel like the one thing that I would tell most people, it's if the guy's bending over the bar once he's done performing, clearly trying to get you to touch him, that's an invitation. But somebody just standing there, it's for me, have I touched a dancer's dick before? Yes. Was he asking me to do it? Yes. When you're opening your underwear and you're telling me to put my hand in your underwear and touch your dick, that's one thing. But you just standing there or just dancing, this is what I tell people. How would you feel if that was you? Or if you can't think that narrow minded, how would you react if that was your friend?
Right.
Because let's put it this way, I have a story. I only have one because it only happened once and I was too nice this time. This is why you say sometimes you need to make an example out of a person. I guarantee you, in this situation I'm talking about, if I had made an example out of this person, they would have never tried that with anybody again. So,
Right.
I was performing in a bar. I was working at a place on the backstage. So, when I wasn't performing, I was just sitting among the audience, watching other people perform, being supportive, being nice. I had some drunk motherfucker. Now, this is what I have to say. My wigs are never bobby pinned in.
Okay.
Because with me singing live, I know when my head's going to move.
Right.
I know I'm not going to be flipping. There's no chance of my wig losing. And literally, it happened to me once in a bob. I literally felt the bob like start to flip up, and I went and caught it before it moved. So it's like that rarely happens. But it's like, so I had some drunk asshole be like, "I want to see you without your wig," and off my head. Well, he went and just put it in.
No, never mess with a drag queen's wig. Oh my goodness.
And as I said, I remained calm. Part of me wanted to take off my shoe and beat him upside the head. I didn't. And let's be clear, I was in Orlando. I was visiting at the time, but it's like the bartender knew me. So it's like if I had done something, I probably would have gotten away with it. Like, but that's one of those things where it's all you gotta do is ask. Fuck. I now know Andre. Okay. Even if I just wanted to touch his ass, I'm gonna ask before I do it. Like, can I do this? Yes or no?
Right. And that's much appreciated. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like I said, the boundaries for me, I definitely one of the dancers that is known to be more fluid.
Right.
It really just depends. But I broadcast it. I'm pretty clear when I'm more playful and more playful and more expressive one night versus another. And because everybody has the right to do that. Some nights are just like, yeah, absolutely, like, and then some nights are just like, I'm just here to do my thing, and then
And
I'm a customer after that.
yeah, and the worst part is you have to act a certain way because it's much like how I know, even if I'm not performing at a bar, if I'm in drag, which is what I usually am at bars, it's like the moment you leave your house slash hotel room, because I've done hotel rooms a lot. I do it a lot when I go to Fort Lauderdale because it's close enough to drive home, but it's also like I feel most times I end up staying down there. But it's like once I leave my hotel room, it's like, okay, bitch, you're on now. Like, I mean, most of the time people are friendly, but it's like even if you're in a bad mood, you have to do that pep talk of it's like you're gonna get attention. Like
Mm-hmm.
you have to, and it's like, especially being in heels, it's like I know when to tap out. Like where it's like, especially if I'm not performing at an event and I'm just showing up, it's like, okay, I'm staying here for this long, and then after that, I'm going to Wawa to get food, and then I'm going back to my hotel room. That's my night, which is a luxury. When you work at an event, you have to show. Well, first of all, you have to show up on time, and you have to work what they tell you. Showing up on time. So, okay. One thing I'm going to ask in Minneapolis, do you guys have to pay to perform?
No.
Okay.
Nope. I mean, like I said, it's not that big of a city
Right.
with tons of venues. Like, if it was someplace like Chicago or Fort Lauderdale, that might be a different story.
Yes, that is how it is. Although I personally fight for dancer slash stripper rights, I believe that it's ridiculous for people have to pay to come perform at a bar. If you're making people pay to come entertain your patrons, you clearly
Right.
don't have the money, or you can't afford to have these people in here. So you
Right.
shouldn't have them. That's just my view on thing. It's like even if you pay them like base wage, and I'm talking about this is America. Like as a tipped performer, I think to this day, national federal minimum wage is 583. Don't quote me on that, but I'm almost positive that's what it is. An hour. And it's like If you can't afford to pay somebody $6 an hour, why are you in business?
Right. Right. And I agree with that. I mean, if
Yeah,
the only time I can see and I've seen the logistics of bars behind the scenes too. So
right,
for things like Pride, I can see where cover charges are because in Minneapolis, Saloon hosts a giant block party that is part of the Pride.
right,
So, I mean, having a cover charge for that covers for entertainment because we bring entertainment from all over the Midwest,
right,
carnival. I mean, stuff that obviously we don't normally have.
right.
Understandable. But when it's your every, you bring in a guest queen or a guest dancer, like, do we really? I think that, in my opinion, to piggyback off what you had said, is
Yeah,
if you can't pay them, don't have them. And
right,
and it's absolutely crazy. The bar's like, well, it's expensive. I said, expensive. I said, I know what you're paying for rail alcohol. This bar makes enough profit.
right.
If you can't profit off the drink sales, close your doors and let somebody else deal with it. Like it's crazy, but it's greed has no bounds, as one would say, and I've seen
Yeah,
situations like that. I mean, I've even seen people who try to book things that are like that. People will try to book me to help out with shows and things, and like, oh, we would love to have you. And I said, listen, when I was starting my go-go dancing gigs, for sure I would help for very, very cheap because
yeah,
I didn't have anything to justify a price. Nobody has really seen me before. They don't know what I'm capable of doing because even I didn't know what I was capable of doing at the time. But now that we're 2 years in and I have elaborate customized outfits and I know what I'm capable of doing and I have a personality, I'm not just sitting there looking vapid.
right,
I command a price because now I'm an experience and not just a person. And just like a really well, established drag queen, they're an experience now. They're not just an entertainer.
right.
They know that they can bring something to a venue. And so I think that, speaking of adding another subject, I think more and more people need to talk about what are you paying for and why is it that we command a price? And I think when people see some of that, sometimes I know I just had a queen book me for her birthday coming up in a couple weeks where I'm traveling to another town.
Right,
And she was like, the price is worth it. And I was like, oh, she didn't even negotiate. She's just like, okay, come and visit. We'll pay the gas. We'll pay the hotel. We'll even pay for your time. And I was just like, that was the easiest negotiation I've ever had. And I've
right.
been in the business of sales as my day job for 13 years. It was just, I was like, oh, shit, I'll bring my best outfits. She didn't complain. She didn't say. She's just like, I like what I see. Here you go.
Now, see, my thing with this is like, not so much as a performer, but doing this, it's when people ask for money. My thing is, especially now, I have a president where it's like, I had somebody ask me a few months ago what I was going to pay them, or they agreed to do the interview, and then they're like, I hope you're fine booking my, or paying my booking fee. And I'm thinking, baby, you were on For the Love of Dills season 2. Nobody knew who the fuck you were 3 months ago.
Right.
And now to me, I can't do it because it's like, at this point, I'm gonna name drop here because I can, but it's like I've interviewed Ricky Roman, the porn star, who's got 118,000 followers, and you have 40,000, and you think I owe you money over him? No.
Yeah.
And I literally told him no. Yeah.
Some people, and that's what I see too. when I charge for things, it really is situational. And I think that's where, to put it more towards the dancer perspective, that's where some dancers need to be judicious and not have a big ego.
Right.
Like, yes, I'm no longer that baby performer and I can actually command a price in certain situations, but I can't be in every situation, right? Like if I'm finally get a foothold in South Florida, I can't be the prima donna. Like I have to be like, okay, because when you get into a new market, you have to treat it like you're starting over in a way, even though you're not. And that's the way I look at it. Like just having the exposure
Right.
sometimes is a greater resource than the money itself. And I think that, you know, one thing that isn't taught to entertainers is you have to have a business sense of it. Not everything is
Right.
dollars and cents. Sometimes networking is worth its own weight in and of itself. Like you get with the right interview with the right people who know the other right people, and that will
Yeah.
create a much bigger paid gig than simply asking for a large sum of money in a random city in a random club that you don't know of, and they just look at you and go, who the hell do you think you are?
And to those people who think like, granted, yes, the only time I would say that you exclude that is like if you have a name already attached to you.
Right.
But it's like even then, it's like for me, another person so it's like asked me for money and they were on TV. It's like, yes, I understand people on TV think it's a lot, but it's like they had placed fourth on it on this show, Hot House. It's like, baby, you placed fourth. And at that time, I had already interviewed one of the winners of Go Go for the Gold. It's like I interviewed the winner of this show. Winner. And you placed fourth and he didn't ask me for money and you are?
Right.
I'm so I mean, I don't know. It's like, and especially when you're doing something like this, if you're paying somebody to be here with as authentic as I've been with you, the minute I'm paying somebody to be here is the minute I know they're not actually here to have a genuine conversation. They're
Right.
here because I paid them. And it's going to become awkward and like stiff and not flow as easy as I'm used to doing things.
And that's also the thing, like, and actually that alludes to what I was going to say next, is sometimes you take opportunities for what they are, not at a price tag.
Right.
You never know, an interview, a random cup of coffee with somebody who might be intertwined in the night entertainment industry somehow. Like, I actually ended up the gig that I'm doing for this drag queen's birthday. I ended up getting that gig by lieu of somebody I met from being a dancer.
Right.
He did porn for a while. He actually was an ex dancer at the bar I worked at. And he was well known. People loved him, and we both became friends. And um, the queen asked him about the gig, and he's like, "Well, that's just it's not in my purview anymore." But he suggested me because of the way I treated him,
Right.
and so like I think that it really comes down into the authenticity of your brand as an entertainer. And I think a lot of people, especially younger people, when they do get that 15 minutes of fame, if it becomes a longer, more, maybe it's more than 15 minutes, maybe you actually get a career out of it.
Yeah.
But how do you keep what made you get to that point, and you keep the momentum going? And the answer is one word. I mean, easier said than done, but it is authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people, I mean, a lot of people, they go thank you at first, but the moment they seemingly become larger than life, they become the fame monster.
Mm, yes.
And I've always had that in the back of my head. I said, even if I just suddenly for some odd freak reason became something of that notoriety, the one thing I'll do is what I've been doing the whole time.
Yeah.
And I pride myself on it because I do it at the bar. Is sometimes I actually tell people, I said, hold your cash for a second. And because I'm friends with a lot of older gentlemen that come to these kinds of establishments, and they go, what do you mean? I said, it's okay. Like, obviously you have permission to do that, but we can have a 5-minute conversation. It's not, our busy period in Minneapolis, since our nightlife is a little slower,
Yeah.
doesn't really get packed in the bar until like 11 on a Friday,
Right.
Saturday night. So I'll actually take my time to show up to work early and talk to some of the regulars before it gets busy and it's too loud,
Hmm.
and make a
Yes.
habit of that. And so even if I go to a foreign venue that I don't know, that's the habit that I have. So
Right.
like at this next venue that I'm going to in a couple of weeks, I'm making it a habit. If the queen says that, I think part of her thing is that she wants me to come on shortly before the show ends. So I think it's like around 10:30 ish or something like that. So I'll start going around saying hi to people during the show at like 9:15,
Mm, yeah.
already in go-go gear, because I've taken tips from drag queens. I joke with my friends that aren't in the nightlife as far as workers.
Right.
I said I was raised by drag queens. When I started go-go, I'd spend a lot of time, when the bar shift overlaps with some of the drag shows on Friday,
Right.
Saturday nights. And I just asked them what they do as entertainers. And so I have my version of a walk around dress. I have certain go-go outfits I only wear walking around or selling shots. I don't dance in them. And then I'll do another outfit change when I actually start work. And because then it gets exposure. It gets people to talk. It gets me to talk to people. It gets
Yeah.
so people get to see a little bit of who I am before I metaphorically put a partial mask on for the night.
Right.
And people see that the person dancing is still the same person that's just walking around having a drink with them before my shift starts.
Yes.
And I think that holding on to those habits that get you there is extremely important, because that's a habit I've had for at least the last year.
Right.
And it works swimmingly, but it's because it's genuine. It's people know they're going to actually have access and talk to me. People know that I'm not going to stub my nose at them because of certain ways people look or whatever. I'm like, nope. You never
Hmm.
know who's going to walk through those doors. You might as well talk to as many people as you can.
Right. To close that note before I ask my next question, my thing is be real, don't be Jennifer Lopez. Anyway.
Whoa, whoa. What did Cher say? Whoa! I'm just gonna wagon wheel right out of here.
It's so true. Okay. Have you ever had a tip stolen from your buddy?
Actually, I have. Fortunately, I've caught people before. Usually doesn't happen on regular nights, but if it's a packed event, people, there's opportunists out there. Sometimes I catch them, and they learn a very harsh lesson. I have very small room of patience when it comes to people messing with my coins, because they wouldn't do it to a drag queen. Why should they do it to me?
Right.
And one time I actually got a drag queen to take care of business, quote unquote. And let's just say said queen is like a glamazon. So, I mean, they're
Yeah.
tall. Suffice to say, some of these people don't show up to the bar again, because I think that one of the things I do to prevent things like that is a lot of us entertainers, including the bar staff, we become like neighborhood watch.
Right.
So I think a lot of people who have frequented the saloon are friends with people that go to the saloon, or friends with people that work at the saloon, which is the bar I work at. They know. They know not to mess with our coin. They know not to mess with what we're doing. And as I tell a lot of people that I get to meet throughout the night, I said, you make it a good experience for me and make it an even better experience for you. And if you can abide by that one simple rule, you'll have a great time.
Right. See, for me, this answer is simple. Yes, I am a big bitch myself, but it's like to anyone who tries to, it's like, hey, dumbass, I'm singing, I'm holding a microphone. You don't think I'll be the bitch to say, stop the track? What the fuck do you think you're doing? Because trust, that's the thing. All these other queens, I see the like videos of like they're all lip syncing, and then there's some of the drag race girls, they're all lip syncing, and people trying to steal their tips. And I don't have anything. Baby, I'm holding the mic. But most people are nice overall.
Right, and that's why I know a lot of queens, because it's not a Midwest concept. It's all over the country. That's why a lot of drag shows have bucket boys for that reason. Because
Right.
especially when it's those higher income shows like the famous drag brunch at the Palace, there's just no way
Mm-hmm.
the queens have time to pick up all the money. They just don't,
Right.
and
No, that's true. That's so
and so
true.
they run the risk of losing some of their coins, and so I think the best thing for entertainers like that is to have somebody like a bucket boy where they can make sure all of the all the drag droppings are picked up by the end of the performance, and
Right.
but that's how our bar does it usually when we can get a go-go boy to do it. And I used to do it a lot. It just becomes a lot because there's so many shows and I have things I want to do with my life outside the bar.
Right.
But I used to be very vigilant. If I saw anybody that looked shifty, like they're eyeing those dollar bills, especially when in the rarity that somebody drops a 5 or a 10 or a 20 or something else. I remember a couple times where I could tell somebody was about to pick up a bill and I'll smack their hands with the bucket. And I was like, that hurt, didn't it? Well, if the drag queen sees you doing that, it's going to hurt a lot more. So, it's, I think, like I said the best solution, and I know it's not always possible, but if you've got a situation like people watching for your dollars in the way that protects you, it's like utilize that. Um, Queer neighborhood watch.
Yes. But yes, then there's certain times where it's like, I remember one time, what was it? I went to go see my drag sister perform, and like nobody was collecting her tips, and I'm sitting in the. It's like, well, bitch, why didn't you tell me nobody was here? I would have collected your tips and not taken mine back. Like, no, I'm kidding. But it's like that actually did happen at one event. Like all of a sudden, the money was like somebody's like flattening it out. I'm like, so can I take my tip back now? I was joking. I wasn't gonna do it, but it's like, no, I was like, I didn't take it back. I was kidding. No, my thing is why I love being in drag and like wearing sunglasses and stuff. It's like because sometimes you can get away with rolling your eyes as you're tipping somebody because they can't see them. So
Right.
it's like I'm not gonna get into it. Okay, so have you ever hooked up with someone who's tipped you?
Yep, I have. Especially in much larger events like Pride. I mean, it tends to happen. I mean, we're horny people out in the community. I think it's time for a lot of people to finally admit that, especially in states like Minnesota where people get passive aggressive. But I, for one, I treat it more like a drag queen personality. If I feel something for you, I feel something for you. Like
Yeah,
I don't hide that fact. And it shouldn't be a crime, to be honest. I mean, some people
right.
were like, "Oh my god, it's so taboo," and I was like, "Really?" Because I know a lot of people that try to talk about attempting to hook up with go-go dancers all the time from other cities all across the country. Like this isn't new, hun. I'm just voicing what you are thinking in your head. Is
Yeah,
basically what I just pointed out to people. And some people would be surprised when sometimes it's reciprocated. I can see it. I since I've been the Oz behind the curtain, I know when a go-go dancer is
Yeah.
looking at a customer with those "I want to fuck you" eyes. Like I know. I mean, it's just like when queens talk when the show's over. We we talk in the dressing room, like, and
Mm,
yes, like I said before. I mean, it's and with much success, to be honest. But again,
right.
what I do is I tell a guy that I'm interested in hooking up with. I said after work, and by after work it means when I clock out, then you can buy me a drink, then we can see where it goes.
Yeah.
And I literally say it like that. I don't get cutesy with it. I don't get ambiguous with my words. Like I right to the point. And I think a lot of people appreciate that. Um, I try most of the time to keep sex and the sexual fantasy separate,
Right.
because
Right.
otherwise you get certain people thinking, oh, well, if I just tip him a certain amount of money, then I can get in his pants, which isn't true.
Very.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Fair.
I have daytime work that pays plenty of the bills. I do this because I enjoy it.
Right.
And but I mean, in all fairness, I mean, doing this work in go-go dancing makes it a lot easier for me because it's basically it cuts grinder down a million steps because I'm just going to say what people are probably thinking in their minds. Cuts the middleman out in terms of all the conversation. They get to see what my body looks like basically in underwear. I mean, there's not much left to the imagination at that point. They either like it or they don't. And if they really, really like it and they want a chance to hook up, then they can simply talk to me. Like I'm not some I'm not some leviathan swimming out there in the open ocean. Like I'm just as human as the rest of the patrons that come to this bar.
Right. See, with my answer, this is easy. It only happened a few times, but let's just say this: the hotel I used to work at in Orlando was a gay resort. It was
Oh,
no, it was yeah, it was notorious for people. They had like a beach out back where people would like go like suck dick or like smoke weed or do whatever, and like
okay.
they had a parking lot where like people notoriously got fucked, and I participated in both situations because this is the thing. Being the bigger bitch is like most of the time, a lot of the guys they're ain't into you anyway. So it's like when you find someone who is, you let them do what they want to do.
You take full advantage of the situation
Yeah,
as long as they want it. Yep.
it's it's like you offered to suck my dick 6 or 7 times. Yeah, I'm gonna take you up on it every time. Like, let's go ahead. You do your thing. I'm filling up a fantasy. Fantasy. I'm filling a fantasy for you, and then after it, we're gone. All right. So, there we go. So, have you considered doing OnlyFans?
Oh, the ages old question. And interestingly enough, you say that question because that question has been gaining traction quite a bit within the last couple months. Um, I know you've looked at my Instagram a few times.
Yes.
It's really started to rear its head after I did that whole bathtub photo. And the answer to everyone's yearning questions, I have thought about it. I just got to find a way to strategically do it because my concern is I can't really hide myself. One, being a dancer, and two, I mean, tattoos. I've got unique markings on me that's easily identifiable.
Right.
So it's not like people with no ink, if I keep my face covered, nobody knows the wiser, and so on and so forth. So, it's that whole community thing. I mean, it's and then thinking about the types of content that I would do and making sure that I don't get myself into deep trouble with that. I mean, the bar doesn't care. That so I know at least in terms of my go-go work, it wouldn't affect it at all. But I have a professional life outside of this.
Right.
So I have to be very careful at some points because, the worst thing would be to get in a business meeting with a potential client, and then the client happens to be queer and found my OnlyFans because people search all the time. So, it's something that weighs on my mind. Do I think it's going to be as big of a tragedy as I think it would be? Probably not. Most likely not. But it is something that I have to keep in the back of my mind. And
See,
so and so it's, if you want a definite answer, it's a maybe leaning towards yes.
right.
It's just how to do it strategically.
See, mine is a maybe leaning towards no, only because this is at least how I put it. It's like, as Prince Electro Diamond, as all of this, I theoretically lead a normal life overall outside of this. My whole thing is, and it's the conflict of being an artist, where it's like, the minute I do it, the minute I try and put out music, everyone's going to be like, but you did this on OnlyFans. And you have to go, but yes, but I'm a fucking artist. Pay attention to me. But you
Right.
did. It's like, I have to now. I'm just going to say it. I don't care. I now have to stupidify what I say to you, because you don't have the, at least in my view, the mental capacity to separate the art from the artist, which is what we expect. And it's like, my other thing is like, I don't need to get naked. I dress half naked in drag, so it's very much like you said, you leave much to the imagination. The world's already seen my ass. Like, it's not really like I'm hiding much. Like, I wear thongs when I perform. It's like I'm not hiding much. And yeah, it's not something I feel I need to do now. Now, I'm also the person who's like, if I'm open to changing my mind in years to come, I'm allowed to change my mind. Hell, I've changed my mind on people who I've interviewed on this podcast who, like, you'll now never see again, because it's like, I liked them at one point as an artist. Now I saw that they actually have no talent, and now I won't have them back on.
Right. Yep. And that's that whole thing, such as life. And I think that's in the go-go world, OnlyFans isn't very damaging because a lot of go-go
Right.
dancers they do come from the adult entertainment industry, as one would say. I there's a lot of go-go boys that still lead a successful time as a go-go dancer, that it helps them gain traction, because now there's a base of people that will recruit them from other parts of the country. Now the downfall is if they're advertised from that background when they get to the venue, then that's what they're seen as the local porn boy. And that is that fine line that I'm worried about. It's say I do gain traction on OnlyFans. Okay, now that's a whole different can of worms to deal with, because now that whole go-go persona of Andre Spades. So what is he now? Is he a go-go dancer or a porn boy or both? Like how do you have to be able to tread that fine line. And the way I envisioned when I put this whole thing together as a go-go dancer is envisioning it as this person, not an
Right.
object. And so that is my concern with OnlyFans, because as soon as you cross that, it's the entertainer's version of crossing the Rubicon. Once that happens, there's no going back. You can't undo it. It's on the interwebs forever.
Yeah. And it's like, this is the way I will say this, because this happened to somebody who I used to be friends with. I've interviewed them on here. We're no longer friends. But it's like, just because you change your stage name doesn't change the whole part of your past that you did with that other stage name. Because guess
Right.
what? It's like
Right, and
if you do
that's
this, you go on TV. The minute somebody knows who you are, they can find out what you did in the past and what you're doing currently.
right.
And but of course, I support everyone who does it. I always encourage people to go to people's OnlyFans and say, subscribe to them. I can't subscribe to this person for more than a month because it's like I'd be broke if I did that for every person who's been down here who does OnlyFans. Too many people do it, but it's like I support my month. I give you my money, and like we go from there. All right, so what do I want to do? Okay, so what's your dating life been like?
Oh, so I have really have been. I'm open to the idea of going on dates and things. I had a rough start to the year with somebody that I had been a little bit more inclined to, but it just didn't work. So it never formulated to anything, and the friendship technically dissolved. Um, so I've just tread a very fine line there, and just kind of focused more on myself. Like, for example, go-go dancing, my day work, my just more my personal life. It's not because of anything negative view with it. It's just more of due to the emotional investment that it takes to be more widely open to going on dates and really getting to know people beyond being friends. It's just not something I particularly have large amounts of time to mentally invest. And I know that sounds very professional as far as a statement, but that's exactly the answer I would give. Now, am I open to going on dates with people? Absolutely. Like, I'm at a point in my life where I've worked on myself and I would love to get to know people on that level and have fun and
Right,
go on dates, but it really isn't my priority right now, just to be honest with people, because I think there's a lot of things to think about, which this is the perfect platform to say it because I don't think a lot of people think about that. And there is a stigma about dating go-go dancers. There really is.
mm,
Uh, and I don't think a lot of people are prepared to date a go-go dancer, let alone know one besides being friends with one.
right,
You know, because I'm coming from it like, okay, is this person gonna view me as something, weird and potentially cast judgment upon me because I'm, well, let's just call it a sex object 2, 3 nights out of the week? Like, are they going to accept that that is not my entire life and that I have a life and interests and things outside of that? Are they trying to date me, or is this part of a fantasy? Because, you know, there's that song called I Fell in Love with a Stripper. I mean, it's in that whole song, right, is about a guy
yeah,
who is infatuated with the stripper's beauty, but they don't really think about who she is and what she does. And, like we both agree, like us entertainers, we have lives and we have things and we have goals and we have feelings and we have aspirations and things we want to do with ourselves and the people that we love and are close to. And I don't think a lot of people really, they don't, because of the club. So I don't blame them for it. They don't see that side. And I think that's why, you know, I'm open to it, but I'm not gung ho to rush to the
right,
first person that gives me a little bit of genuine attention, because why are they? And maybe it's made me just a little bit jaded on that respect because of the stigma that runs behind it. But I have every right to think that, because I have friends that are dancers that have tough dating lives because of that.
right. And from what you're saying, I'm just gonna piggyback onto it a little bit. It's hard. I would say it's especially hard being dating an entertainer who has to do everything for themselves.
Right.
Because it's like, this is what I had to tell the guy I'm like in a it's complicated situation with, because I have to tell him like when he gets annoyed when I'm like busy and like we can't see each other. It's like listen, I'm working with this person, and yes, I'm too busy for you, but it's like, because I'm too busy for you, literally he's now going to get an opportunity in Fort Lauderdale because he now knows one of my friends who's like a go-go booker in Fort Lauderdale, because that's what I do. It's like, if I wasn't out here working to make the connections, you wouldn't be able to have the people that you know because of me.
Right.
And it's like, I have to put in that work. I mean, granted, well, much like you've gotten better from being sick, so have I. So it's like, I haven't been doing a lot, but it's like, usually all the time I'm on my, and this is what kills me, I can't keep my phone on me at work, but it's like, whenever I get a chance to get to my phone, I'm emailing people, I'm DMing people, I'm checking schedules, I'm advertising when interviews are coming. And it's like, if I'm not doing this podcast, I'm trying to do something with music, or sometimes I'm just relaxing, because at the end of the day, we all need a break.
Right.
And it's hard because my thing is, especially now, with me trying to move so soon to Detroit, like, fingers crossed, I'm hoping to move in a month. So it's like, and I've been busting my ass to do it, but it's like, at some point, if I'm able to make it in June, I know at some point in May, I'm going to have to stop and I'm going to have to disappear.
Right.
And I tell my fans, when I'm having to disappear, it's because I'm going to have to move and set up moving and like do all that and be without internet, because for some reason, whenever you move into a place, they can't automatically set up internet for you that day. I don't
Right.
get why. I don't get why they should, but it's like, to me, internet, anyone who's like our age, theoretically our age, even though like they say internet is technically not an essential item, it really kind of is.
Oh, it is. I mean, a lot of people do everything from banking to medical stuff. Like, you need it. You need it.
And it's and yeah, but it's like, I'm also one of those people who like, I'm kind of a workaholic, because it's like, I don't like to take time off from doing stuff, because it's like, granted, there's some weeks. Have there been weeks where I've not booked a single guest? Absolutely. It's been somewhat relieving, but there have also been times where I've had to book 4 guests in 1 week. The craziest time was, before I get into the last question, or the last 2 questions, but it's like, the craziest time was Super Bowl Sunday. I was literally, this is how much gays aren't into football. Like, I was interviewing somebody in the middle of the fucking Super Bowl. Like, that's how much I didn't give a shit about the game. I was sitting here, Super Bowl Sunday, everyone else was doing their thing, like, woo. I don't even know who the fuck was playing. That's how much
it was Team Taylor Swift versus
Oh yeah.
oh god, what was the other? See, that's how much it mattered to me.
See, that's
I was basically watching the game because friends invited me over to their little soiree so that we could make a drinking game of how many times they would show Taylor Swift during the game.
yes. Listen, I have said what I thought about Taylor Swift on here. Taylor Swift, in my opinion, is somebody who combines very bland white lookingness with having mediocre talent. That's Taylor Swift.
Oh, That is the first time I've heard that remark about Taylor Swift.
What, that Taylor Swift is like very I mean, that's not a lie. Like, Taylor Swift is, I'm not gonna say she has no talent, but is she like, she's not Lady Gaga. Like, let's
I
get
would
real.
see that's where I would agree with you is that Lady Gaga has much more raw talent and
Yeah,
more of a genuine. She is definitely more of a genuine persona overall. I mean, the way she treats her fans is a lot better than Taylor
yeah,
Swift.
she does. Gaga is good to her fans. I have heard, actually, just a few days ago, I heard kind of how she treats her dancers, because I interviewed one of her dancers who from the Chromatica Ball, and like,
Oh, okay.
yeah, and like, I get it. She's very, very distant from people who, but she's not distant in like a diva way. She's distant and she works with the dancers when she's there, and she's very to herself when she's not with the dancers, and like doesn't go out all the time. But it's like, at her stage in the game, I kind of get it, because it's like, especially Gaga. I don't know if she does this anymore, but I remember when she talked about being on the Fame Ball or being on the Monster Ball tour, and she was literally working on Born This Way as she was in the middle of the tour. So it's like, she's sitting here making music when she's not on stage, and it's like, that's a lot of pressure to put yourself under.
Right. Yeah, she was cranking out album after album after album after album for a while, but Mother Monster did it. She did
Yeah.
it.
Well, that's the industry. That's why I've always said, when people like strive to be like non-independent, like, fuck it. I'd rather pay for it myself, because like, this whole thing of the people going in the boardroom and being like, okay, this is your new song that you came out with. What TikTok challenge are we gonna do to your new song? And I'm gonna be like, fuck all the way off. Like, no.
Oh my god.
Like, no, I hate you. Because it's like, how dare you try and bastardize my fucking story for a few, what, 15-second clips? Believe me, I TikTok and the length of songs now drives me insane. Because it's like, we're no longer doing 3.5 minute songs. It's all 2 minutes and 50 seconds, condense everything, or 2 minutes and 30 seconds, 2 minutes and 50 seconds. Let's condense everything in. Let's put, I go back to, what was it? The example I always use is Unholy by Sam Smith and Kim Petras. Why was Kim Petras there? The song is so short. You have him doing one verse, you have her doing another verse. They combine together. That's not a song. I don't know. I go off about this because it's like, I have passion. It's hard. It's hard not to.
No, that's understandable. I like I said, I had a stint as a drummer for a while. I learned when I was 5. I
Yeah.
played with all different kinds of bands, rock bands, pop bands, swing jazz bands, bluegrass bands, even a country band here. And not professionally, but like my hobbies led me to deal with some professional musicians here and there. And just how music has evolved is something that will continue to baffle me. But pop music, if you want to see the decay in people's attention spans, that's a good place to start.
See, that's why, like, my album is going to be so much for my fans because it's like most songs are like between 3 minutes and 20s to like I think one of the longest songs is like 4.5 minutes, and it's like I'm really gonna test people's patience, but it's like if it's my soul, it goes back to the whole thing. It's like this is the part I don't get. And this is what I'll say to the gays. I promise that. We have 2 questions left. But it's like you all in the gays, you all want these songs played in dance clubs. So you're taking a 2.5 minute song and you're stretching it out to 4 minutes. Why didn't it start at 4 minutes? Like, why are we having to like stretch it out to 7 minutes now? We all know you wanted this one to begin with when you're sitting in the back of the bar with the motherfucker who's putting G in your drink, like, so you can.
Oh my god. Bob Ross painting a beautiful picture, everybody. And in the back of the bar, we have our happy little accident during our new 7-minute remix. Oops. Sometimes things happen. Just that happy little couple in the back corner.
Yeah, and it's like, and then the other guys are like, those guys are doing G. The other guys are in the other corner doing Tina in the bathroom next to the stall where the people are doing coke and the other. Yes, I'm painting a beautiful picture. Okay, you have worked in nightlife. Am I wrong?
You're not right. That's why I'm laughing.
Yeah, because it's like, I will say this. I am the bitch who does everything sober. Like, first of all, I always view it as I'm singing live, so it's better for me to be singing sober anyway.
True.
It's better for my vocal cords. It's like, and also I had a night in my like mid 20s where I was getting handed drink after drink after drink. And then I think after like 4 drinks, I had like a shot. And it's like, I almost got a DUI that night. That's just like, cut to the story. And that's where like, I haven't stopped drinking completely, but it's like I stopped drinking when I perform because it's like, A, I don't need this, and B, it's like, this is what I will say. I don't know if the go-go dancer is going to agree with me here, but it's like, if you see me perform, hand me money. Like, honestly, hand me money. Like, we're going to say $5. I'm clearly not talking about LA. The $5 you're paying for a drink. Hand it to me.
Yes, yes.
I'm clearly not. That person I was talking about, who was the dancer at Chromatical Ball, they said they charged $12 for drinks in WeHo. I'm like, the fuck? You're gonna charge me $12 for?
And that's a real drink.
Yeah, no. That's a regular drink.
Yeah, but like real alcohol, right?
I don't know. I didn't get that far into the conversation, but it's like,
so, yeah.
To me, it's like, I'm like, usually if I get like 2 drinks in a row with a tip, that's $12. Like, for me, 1 drink. It's like, no. LA's garbage. Anyway, so it's, listen, LA gives us all the theoretically great stuff. This is what, okay. I know I'm getting these questions. I promise. Um, so this person told me, I'm like, I literally asked them the question. I'm like, do you like living in LA? And they said no. I'm here because it's good for work. And I'm like, thank you for your honesty, because so many people pretend like LA is amazing. It's not.
I have no desire to live in LA, to be honest with you. I never have, never will.
Well, because this is the way I look at it. As a go-go dancer, you can pretty much go anywhere. And in LA, the only reason you would like theoretically go out there is if they ever made a third season of Go for the Gold. I could see it then, which it ain't happening. I know why, but I have not said publicly why, because Greg McKeon trusted me to keep a secret, and I fucking will, because I'm
There
that
you go.
bitch.
Fair enough.
But it's like, yes, I do know why there's not a season 3. But it's like, anyway. But it's like, other than that, no. So what? You can have vapid, fake conversations with people pass. Okay. So, what are your thoughts on how the LGBT community is being treated today?
Well, honestly, I think you and I are both in agreement there without any argument. I mean, could always be treated better. In fact, I would even
Right.
go as far to say that even within our own community, we need to treat each other better. And I'll go even farther because our own infighting is the reason why there's been attacks from the outside. I mean, I remember talking to, I mean, it also helps, like I said, I'm friends with older gentlemen and people that are college age. So it's
Right.
all the generations of LGBTQ people. And I think the more we infight, the more opportunities we give for those to legislate against us, to put in discriminatory laws, to, I mean, whatever negative you name, what have you. And we could be treated better. A lot of us just want to live our damn lives, to be honest. I mean, I'm not openly vocal. I don't wear gay as a personality. I just want to be treated like a human being, like most of people in our community. And I don't think that's
Right.
too much to ask for. It's not too much to ask when I'm in a different part of the country and not potentially be hate crime because one day I decide to wear heels and a crop top. I rarely do, but colors of the rainbow, I can wear
Yes.
whatever the hell I want.
Exactly.
And but not everybody is more mask facing like I am in the typical ways that I usually dress. So not everybody gets that luxury when they leave out of the house that they're not going to be potentially hate crime. I ask for others that I would ask for myself to be left alone into their devices in terms of go out, be able to run your errands, be able to go to the club, be able to hang out with friends without judgment from random onlookers on by. Like, and I think that's the unfortunate part, that even though it's 2024, there are people that would still rather see us gone within our own borders, let alone other countries in the world. And it's a very big reality. It's even something I said to my parents. I said, think about how lucky for those who aren't queer or trans or anything other than straight. Those that are truly straight, or at least identify as such, they have the luxury of going anywhere on the planet, and they're highly unlikely to die the moment they step off the plane.
Right.
There are 64 countries right now, if I recall. That number changes here and there, obviously, as political climates have been changing.
Hmm.
But there are countries that if me and a guy openly kiss, that could immediately be sentenced to death. It's highly unfortunate. I mean, but if it were straight people, none the wiser. So, I think that for those that call them our allies, I would want them to understand that we are very fortunate that we live in the environment that we do. Yes, we have instances of various kinds of phobias here in the United States, but it can be way worse in other places, and we could make this a non-issue if people just realize that at the end of the day, people are people. And I think that we so ascribe to each other and ourselves labels that we forget that we are humans at the end of the day. And people said, well, that's not looking at it through. No, it is. It really is. You start talking to somebody like they really truly are important. This is the person. This is their whoever their name is or whatever. It's beyond the ascribed attributes like, oh, this is a gay person or this is a trans. When you start seeing them as a person, then it gives them that opportunity to be that person, that friend, that whoever they may be, that entertainer, that bartender, that office worker, whatever, what have you. And then on top of that, a family member, and then the layers keep adding like a cake, because that's what they are. They're in existence. They're not just a label. And I think if we want to improve ourselves, I think that we got to start looking beyond the labels. If we want to really truly make it better for ourselves as a community and start, peacefully announcing ourselves back towards those that don't want us around, it's that, you know what, we're people too, and we're finally united in the fact that we look at each other as people. So now you're going to have to look at us as people and get over it.
Right.
So to put an answer to your question, after everything I said, yeah, we could do a lot better. There are great people, obviously, in our community. Otherwise, we wouldn't be around. And, but you know what? It's just like a single person. Self improvement. If I had to look at the community as one whole person,
Mhm.
there's lots to learn, lots of self improvement. But but the
Yes.
beautiful part is that if enough people become aware of that, we'll be around for a healthy long time. And this is the way I'm an eternal optimist at the end of the day. So you know things might be a little bumpy now, but I think with the right mindset collectively, we'll get through it. I mean, the gays in the 60s and 70s did it, so why can't we?
Right. And actually, I don't have anything else to add to that because usually I have to bring up the international point of gay people, and you did it for me. So thank you. So, because most people just think of like when I say it, when I say that question, they think of just here. And I'm like, but there's so much more outside of the United States because the sad thing is in the United States, unfortunately, sadly, it's as good as it's going to get. Like, unless we change hands politically, although I'm not saying that in the way that a lot of people think,
No, but it's
which
more
is,
of a queer friendly politic, which is true regardless of God, whoever. Oh no. But my
yeah,
my my point is like having politicians in general be more humanizing
because
towards people in our community.
yeah, a lot of things, it's a human rights. It's a human rights issue. It's not like a gay rights issue. Just to say, like, anyone who's like, oh, but you're just for the gays in the Middle East, like, having that, it's like, no, let me be clear. The way that they treat women in Saudi Arabia is not something I agree with either, but it's like, I feel like that's more of a common sense thing. Like, the thing where it's like, duh, obviously I'm against this, but it's like, we have to talk about the gay people because it's like, they're like, oh, you could just hide it. Oh, you could just do this. It's like, for some people, I mean, granted, overall, out of the makeup, out of the wig, and all that, I'm pretty much like you. I can like hide it, but I mean, overall, is it like, can I just like be completely hidden, or can I be completely like quote unquote straight acting? I have a deeper voice, like that's why I get away with it. But it's like overall, it's like start talking to me about Lady Gaga and Madonna. Trust me, you'll find it. You'll find out very fucking soon.
Right. And I think that's and the question that people go, well, sometimes you have to, adapt to a situation. And my big question is, why should I have to?
Hmm.
I came out at 29. I spent most of my life conforming to a standard I thought I was supposed to follow. You know, one of my friends said it best. Unfortunately, bless his soul, he's no longer around. He said, I ain't conforming to no damn standard. I came out for a reason.
Right.
So and I think those who are allies, from the heart, I hope they understand that they don't have to go through that. The people that remain straight and are straight, they don't have to go through that. They don't have to go through the painful process of almost it's almost like imposter syndrome at first. You hide yourself for so long if you don't come out at a younger age, so for some people it's still a challenge. I mean, I sometimes have questions of myself and I address it in therapy, and that's for the therapist. But the
Right.
thing is, like, you know, the coming out process never ends, especially depending on the environment that we're both in.
Hmm.
You'll get asked time and time and time and time again, and that is what the community is all about, is by having a family of people that you can relate to. You don't have to come out every goddamn day. They know who you are and they appreciate who you are, and you don't have to hide yourself beyond a veil of a false sense of whatever ascribed the label here. You
Right.
can be who you are. And that's what I appreciate about the environments that I'm in now versus what I was. Is if I want to wear regular in quotations clothes, I can. And if I want to be more expressive and wear different earrings and all these different wacky things, which is also equally a part of me because I love being expressive, I can do that too. And it just depends on how I feel. And that is something that I think people sometimes take for granted that aren't in those situations. Is, you know, even especially in other parts of the world, even a wardrobe choice, because
Hmm.
gender is a lot more rigid expression in places like the Middle East, for example.
Yes, absolutely.
Choosing certain colors and too tight of pants and all that stuff can be a death sentence. I think about that, like, and I have gay friends that are transplants from the Middle East. I've met him at the bar, and we had a beautiful deep discussion. He's like, he absolutely loves it here. He loves the fact that he started dressing differently because he knows that he's not going to get his ass whooped the moment he leaves the house. That, to me, I mean, I won't ever see that, hopefully, in my lifetime. And so I count those blessings where I can leave the house and wear something that I want to actually wear and express
Yeah.
myself the way I want to express myself.
And that's honestly for America and most of the well, lots of the world. It's a lot of that generation that thinks the way that people do in the Middle East is dying off. Like, so the people that that you're never going to be able to educate are going to be gone. So,
Right.
like, all we have to do is educate people, and especially now, as we go into the last question, it's like, now, who among you doesn't at least know one gay person?
Right.
Or it's like, I mean, granted, I'm not saying you got to know somebody who's like walking around in like a sparkly vest like they're fucking Liberace. But what I'm saying is like, I'm saying like you all know at least one person. Like, And if you say, "Oh, I don't," it's like trust me, Jim Bob. I saw your friend Ray. He was on Grinder. He was sucking my dick 4 hours ago. Like it's like so trust, baby. It's the different generation. We all know them.
Oh,
And
yes.
finally, what's the biggest misconception about you?
Oh, jeez. The biggest misconception. Hmm. I can't really name one off the top of my head. I mean, I will admit that I've had the luxury of honing things in per se. I'm not too broadcasted out there as of yet. Like people know me, but it's not like a local celebrity by any means. So I'm able to hide when I want to, and I'm able to PR myself when I want to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I mean, I guess once in a while, I guess some people can get flippant and say something they probably don't mean, but sometimes people call me the asshole. And I think it's very sorely mistaken with me when people don't understand that all I'm doing is simply telling them how I actually feel. And by that, I mean enforcing my boundaries. And that tends to be a common problem, especially in the Midwest, because being bluntly forward is not a common thing here. Like I said, people tend to be ambiguous. People tend not to tell the truth right away. People tend to hold themselves back. So anybody who does that kind of thing around here usually is from outside of the Midwest, like New York, LA, South Florida, places where people are a little bit more outspoken. Um, so when people are like, "Oh, what the hell is wrong with you?" or like, because usually I'll deny them if they try to make advances, or I'm like, or they, so I would be like, pay up right now. Like, oh, you're being no, okay. I'm here as an employee of the bar to give an experience of which is paid for. I am not here for only your enjoyment. I'm here for everybody else as well.
Right.
And therefore, you are not the center of the universe, and therefore the center of my attention. Um, and I say stuff like that. It's not something apparently mean. It's not like I'm attacking their character or anything like that. And so I think me just being realistic with people like on that level can definitely be a shock to some and a welcome to others. Because on the positive side, I've had others go, "Thank you for letting me know. I won't do that next time." And I'm like, it's not like you have to apologize. The fact that I'm being acknowledged in terms of my boundary makes me want to actually approach you more than say other people, right? Like I
Right.
do, I triage customers all the time. The ones that treat me the best, I'm going to spend the most time with them because I know I'm
Right.
not going to get harassed by them the moment I get in the bar. And then sometimes, because there are some of them that I'm friends with, I'll spend time with them after I clock out because why not? They're
They're your
treating me
friends,
like
yeah.
a human being, then I'm going to spend time with them.
And it's almost like I've had certain dancers. One thing is that I've wanted to humanize people because it's like at the end of the day, it's like, yes, this person is just somebody you're theoretically staring at, somebody you're just like putting in your mind to like go like get your rocks off later, like thinking about them. But it's like
Right.
that's what you're thinking about, but it's like I've now like in some ways, even if it wasn't like how I started it, granted I don't perform directly in that community, but it's like I'm a part of this community. I understand y'all because I've heard it enough. I've heard the stories. I've heard what happens, and it's like, for me, it's like, don't cross the line. And in that, it's like, especially with some people, it's like, I become friends with people. It's like, granted, I'd love to say I am the person who's like, I am the podcast host who's always there for people. But it's like, I may not be the one to first reach out because, like, baby, I'm busy. But it's like, if you like message me, talk to me, acknowledge me, I'll get back to you. But it's like, I may not be the first person to like check in on you. But this is what I've had to explain to people. It's not that I don't care. It's just I'm so like in the like quote unquote hamster wheel of like going,
And that's
keep on like moving.
understandable. It really is, because
Yeah,
um speaking of which, I mean,
yeah,
as I finally started making traction because I started advertising myself more. More and more people want to talk, and you only have so much time of the day. That's the way I nicely
yeah,
explain to people. I only have so much time of the day, and not just for work. How about
for
the things
everything.
how about the things I want to do, not always the things I need to do. Like, at some point, to put it nicely, like, I want self-care, right? Like, gotta budget time for other things, and I think that's where people, I mean, if you wanna put it in an extreme case, like, in a hypothetical scenario, right, people try to get the attention of a celebrity, well, they only have so much time, and I'm sure they wanna do things with their private lives, and so to put it more down to earth, if it's somebody like you and I, where we talk to enough people, where it's now becoming something we have to weigh on our minds. Okay, so people reach out to us, people do things, and how much time do I parcel for myself so that I do not get overwhelmed with it? And I think that's where a lot of people don't see the humanity in an entertainer. When an entertainer gets enough traction, now that is a dilemma. Dilemma is keeping it real enough with your fans or the people you get close to show that you're not anything different in terms of
Yeah,
in a healthy way. But at the same time, now you have issues that have arise now because of the traction that you now balance out. And I think people that aren't in those shoes, sometimes they get frustrated because they don't understand that. And so, word to the wise out there that aren't entertainers out there watching this, we'll get back to you. We promise we're paying attention to you. We just also have to find time for ourselves so we don't become too cranky and we can give you the best version of ourselves. And we can't do that
absolutely.
being at the beck and call of everybody else but ourselves. Because what did one famous drag queen say? If you can't love yourself, how the hell are you supposed to love anyone else?
Yes, exactly. And with me, I've been told two things that are like misconceptions. One of them is that I'm intimidating, which I mean, as a person overall, I'm 6'3", so I mean, like that makes sense. Like, not the shortest person in the world, but it's like overall, and usually the glasses I wear when I'm out performing. So like, these are my interview glasses. The ones that I wear are like a dark pair of Ray-Bans. They were a pair of my mom's, so like
Okay.
I take her energy with me every time I perform. These I got in a brand deal. I got like a few different pairs. And it's like it's nice because I remember before I got these, I would sometimes have to sit there and do like one of those, like you step back really far so that way you're like sitting there trying to read the next question because like,
Yeah.
but yeah, so that's one of them. Intimidating. The other one is that I've been told I'm shady, which I'm sorry. My me giving you an opinion about something is not shade, but also on the other side, drag queen and shade kind of go together. Now the difference is a lot of the reason why people hate Shade is because a lot of these motherfuckers ain't funny. Which is why if you ain't funny, shut your ass up. We don't need Joe Shade. Go in the bathroom. Somebody needs their dick sucked. Like,
Hey, but you know what though? There is a stark difference between dropping shade and just dropping some real tea.
yeah,
And I think a lot of people, especially in our day and age, they like to bring the fire, but they don't know how to handle it. It's I've always been a big believer that if you're gonna start smacking around a little bit, you better be prepared for some hits of your own. And I think, I, especially being friends with drag queens and close drag queens and even some Rue queens, I'm just like, oh boy, like somebody they're about to, especially when new queens come in the circuit a little bit, and they think they're all that because they watched a few episodes of RuPaul, and so they're going to start acting like that. I was like, where did you earn this attitude? Where did you earn it? It's not pretty. It's not entertaining. I was like, I can tell that things are fine, but I think you missed one key ingredient for dinner, and that was a slice of humble pie, which I do tell people sometimes because I don't get the luxury of
right,
hiding my face. I don't get the luxury of being behind makeup. I don't get the luxury of being behind elaborate costumes and things like that. If I say something out of pocket and wrong, keyword wrong, it's coming after me.
right.
So, I think it's quite funny, to be honest with you, watching some of the queens go at it. And I say I'm blessed not to do that because people like yourself and other drag queens, you're the professionals. You deal with that. I'm just here to watch. I'm here to get
Well,
out the popcorn.
it's because, well, let's just put it this way: there's some drag queens who don't classify me as a proper drag queen, and my response to that is keep on doing it because it's like you're all polished, be polished, baby. I'm fucking rock star. Like, I'm over here doing the shit that y'all can't do. So it's like you can do the 1-2 numbers that are cute, not the singing, because some of y'all, we've all heard RuPaul's Drag Race queens try and sing. Don't sing, don't sing. But it's like, with that being said, love you, adore Delano, one of my great inspirations. But it's like, come try and do this. Because I guarantee y'all, most of you can't do a simple conversation with somebody without being drunk. Because let's be clear, as I said, I do performing sober, I do this sober. Because that's just proof that, like, you queens that need your shots, need your drinks before you perform. I may not be as polished as you, but I'm pretty sure I'm more talented than you.
And therein lies the secret
And
recipe of success.
is the secret is you should be able to do it no matter what. You shouldn't have to be like fucking drunk to the wind, having to be like drunk on mimosas at fucking brunch at 10 in the morning to perform a show. I've never worked brunch. I will gladly work brunch. Detroit, you want to book me for brunch once I move there? I will gladly do it. Florida, you'll probably want to start booking me for stuff once you realize how I am once I leave. But kidding. But it's like I am, but I'm also the person who's like, to prove that I'm not shade, I always pay it forward. This is what I say to anyone. If you're a go-go dancer and I'm working in Detroit and I can get you a gig, I'm gonna fucking get you a gig. Like, that's what I do for anybody. I do it for people as like, for example, going back as big as like Ricky Roman or Johnny Cakes, or somebody as small as Andre. It's like if I can get somebody a fucking gig, I'm gonna get somebody a fucking gig, and like that's called, at least in my view, whether they call quote unquote paying it back, meaning like you did something for me, I'm gonna do something for you. That's how I am, and that's why I don't survive in Florida, because I'd rather work with y'all to lift people up, not
Right.
be like I'm part of this clique, you're part of that clique, you're part of that clique. Because that's why I hate Florida. It's all like the drag queens around here, except for my drag sister, pretty much have shut me out. And like, and they shut me out because I won't do what they want me to do.
That see, and that to me is just an insidious thing. Like I don't sit well on that. I
Yeah,
it completely baffles me how some sections of drag entertainment it stifles its own growth. I mean, it gets tiring. It really does.
yeah,
Every community has some. I mean, Minneapolis has this. Excuse me. Minneapolis has its similar issues where certain queens gatekeep other things, and I'm like, why? Why are you afraid of a little competition? Why are you afraid of letting people in? It's
mm,
okay to have. There will always be somebody worse, and there will always be somebody better.
exactly.
And I think some of the people get hostile to that reality because it breaks the sense of their own world. And I truly believe that the mark of a great entertainer, whether they're a go-go dancer, a drag queen, or whatever, the mark of greatness of an entertainer is when they live by that. Somebody will always be better than me. Somebody will be less. I'm just out here to do my shit. And
That's God.
if that was in leadership, that would book a lot more variety and quality of entertainers too.
That's why. What is it? As we close this out, my example of, as I always say, as a singer, when you look at like X Factor, like American Idol, and you hear those people who say, "I have a 10 out of 10 voice," and they're usually fucking garbage. The reason that is because you can't ever think of yourself as a 10 out of 10 voice. I love the clips a lot more when you see people who don't realize that they have the talent. And it's like they know they can do it, but they don't realize how amazing they are. And like that to me, it's like if somebody said like rate yourself out of 10, I would say I'm an 8.5, 9 on a good day. But it's like as long as you keep yourself in that realism, you're gonna go far in this industry or in any industry. It's like Andre knows he's a good go-go dancer. He doesn't have to think, oh my god, I'm the best go-go dancer that's ever been booked. Like, ain't nobody ever gonna fucking touch me. Short career, because somebody
Very short.
will take your slot, move you out, and then now to do relevance, you're stuck doing porn, even if you didn't want to, because can't get gigs to go-go because nobody wants to work with you.
Right. And this is why I always believe in helping others where it's due. I think it's a good concept to have. It's because and you know what though, I do attribute part of why I'm still this way in a great way because of those that came before me and those that I've grew with. Like I said, the queens that got me into the club, I don't forget that. I don't forget, some of the bartenders that vouched for me. I don't forget because before I got through to the couch. Before I got through to the shower contest, I had asked both the AGM and the GM, here's my phone number. How do I get it? How do I get it? How do I get it? How do I get it?
Right.
And then it was a drag queen that was like, if you really want to know the process, here's the process. And we can vouch for you and cheer for you during the shower contest because it was won by audience applause. So, I just met a lot of the regulars at the bar that happened to go on Sunday nights and, started making friends that showed up. And, that was the very humble beginnings of it all. I'll always remember that night. In fact, it was almost 2 years to the day actually that I'd won it. Um, and, I'll never forget, I competed against 5 other people. And if you want to go by more of a shallow rating, they had every bit the chance to win that damn thing. And so, you know, it was by, sometimes it takes a village, and it was by the people that I had asked around, the people that I had faith in that got me through. So, I can say it was by my own doing. Sure, it was by my own doing in terms I was, brave enough to go in the shower and dance in the shower,
Mm-hmm.
and I did that stone
Right.
cold sober.
Mm-hmm.
I
Oh,
so
yeah. Wow.
so I was just like, this is the first time I was nearly naked because I did not take my jock strap off, and but I think that was a night that I proved to myself that if I can do this, I can do just about anything if I put my effort into it. Like with the right people, the right help, in the right mindset, then almost anything is achievable. And I think that's to put the final notes on that. Like
Yeah.
for anybody who wants to be a go-go dancer, I think part of it is, do you want it or do you think you want it? Because those are two different aptitudes. Those are two different behaviors. Those are two different mindsets. If you're gonna get into it, shit or get off the pot kind of thing. Like be committed. This is what you want to do. Put your heart into it, because if you do, ironically enough, you'll make more. You do it to fill a time, you do it to try to pay a gap in the rent, people will know. You don't have to tell them. The body language will show, the way you talk will show, the way you express yourself will show, because it won't come out as a passionate thing.
Yeah. I'm thinking about what you're saying, and you're like, yeah. It's so. It's like the drag queens who are the people or performers. There have been. I would say there have been many times, but there have been times where like I've seen people up there, and it's like, oh, she's up there because she's pretty, but at the end of the day, they're up there. They're not. They're gonna have like their 2 minutes of fame. Trust, I've been in this game, like in and out of performing for, oh God, 9 years. Yeah. And it's like, I've changed. And it's like, in that I've changed a lot. I've learned a lot. It's my thing of what people always tell you, which is if you can't go in the traditional way, make your own door. And if you're afraid to do that, be afraid. Be very afraid, because that will truly, once you get past the fear, you'll be set free.
Right.
All right. And with that being said, it was a pleasure getting to meet you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for the
Yes.
opportunity and the time. This was a lot of fun. This is the first time I've actually
Yes.
done something like this.
Amazing. I love it. And I will say this, of course, you can always come back because you'll probably want to, because a lot of people suck at doing this. Like, it is, I'm being so real. All right. And with that being said, this is Gay Out the City. I'm your host, Prince Electro Diamond, and I hope you enjoyed.